Live. Drive sober.
This is Rogers TV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Money Matters with Shannon, the personal finance show focused on moving you forward financially. On today's show, we're discussing financial planning during illness. When you're faced with unexpected health concerns, having to manage your finances and deal with debt can mean added stress at a time when you may already be feeling overwhelmed. But there are things that you can do to reduce this stress so that you can focus on your health and feeling better. Joining me with her advice today is Natalie Faubert, Senior Vice President and Licensed Insolvency Trustee at BDO Debt Solutions. Natalie, welcome to Money Matters and thank you for being here.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for inviting me today.
Before we get into our discussion, can you share a little bit about BDO and what you do as a Licensed Insolvency Trustee?
Sure. So I think the best way for me to describe BDO is that we're a big national firm with the little town feel. We have offices in every pockets of pretty much every city across the country, which is pretty cool. And we have individual, boots on the ground. So if you ever feel the need to meet with somebody in person, we're there. So as a licensed insolvency trustee, what we do is we help people who are struggling financially. So people come in to see us and we'll review their options and point them in the right direction. Sometimes they need to work with us within the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act, but oftentimes we're able to help them find solutions outside of that as well.
Well, and today we're talking about some of those different solutions as well, because we're really focusing on managing our finances while we're dealing with health issues. So, of course, with chronic and long-term illness, managing money can often be more stressful than usual, but there are some things that we can do to maybe make this task hopefully a little bit easier. So Natalie, when you're talking to someone who is maybe having these health issues, is there something that they should maybe be focusing on first when it comes to their finances?
Absolutely. I think that, if you start looking at the stresses in your life, illness is one of them, finances is one of them. When you have stress on both sides, I can't imagine, the added stress that will cause and what that could do to your illness. So I think that an important thing to do when you do get sick, you might need to take some time off, you might have a reduced income, is do an inventory check. What do I have at my disposition? Do I have benefits through work? Do I have short-term disability? Do I have long-term disability? What does that entail? How much money am I going to be bringing in compared to what I was bringing in while I was working? Is the long-term benefit taxable? If so, you have to make sure you put some money aside for that. Is it non-taxable? Those are the things that you're going to have to kind of inventory. Asking for help is always a good idea as well, to talk to your family, talk to your friends, a financial planner. But in doing that inventory check of what you've got, aside from that, do you have investments? Do you have savings? Do you have equity in your home? Do you have money in your bank account? Do you have a few months of savings? Not a lot of people do, but always do that inventory check to see what you have before you start putting a plan together.
I think it's so important too, because a lot of us, if we have benefits through our employer, a lot of us are not even aware of what's available in those plans. And so I agree about look at what resources you already have available to see if this is a short-term health issue that you're going through. Maybe you're just recovering from surgery and it's a 6-week, 2-month sort of window of time to maybe get you through that period. Would you recommend making sort of any major money decisions while you're in this situation?
I think that, with any big things that happen in your life, I think status quo. Try to take some time before you make a big money decision, because you might not be in the right thought process to be making that decision. So if you take your time, review, like I said, what you have at your disposition, and then live with that for a little while to see if things are going to change, if they're going to get better. And if they don't, then start looking at those, big life decisions. Another thing to look at as well that I forgot to mention is that a lot of employers have an EAP program, which is really good to get some, access, extra help. And the other part is, what kind of vacation time do you have? What kind of personal time do you have? If you have banked weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks or months of time off, you might actually be able to get through your illness, get better, and not have to lose any of your salary. So those are always things to look back to see what you have available to you before you make any of those big changes or make, future plans.
I love that, because the inventory that you're taking is not only your monetary inventory, it's your time inventory as well. And I thank you for bringing that up, because absolutely looking at what kind of vacation time, sick time that you might have available over that period of time, I think is really important. Now, for those who may not be aware, what does EAP stand for?
Oh my gosh, Employee Assistance Program. You put me on the spot right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of employers do have some kind of a program in place. And absolutely, it's something else that you can look into. So all of that is really, really good information. Now, for those who may be coping with a long-term illness, obviously that in and of itself is stressful. Mm-hmm. Adding the finances on top of that makes it that much worse. Is it a good time to maybe reach out to a financial planner to look at what your options are?
Yeah, I think so. There's a lot of different places that you can reach out for help. So a financial planner is one of them. I talked about already the EAP program, but also a financial planner, maybe an estate lawyer. Do you have a power of attorney in place? Should you have one? So talking with your financial planner would be a first step, because you can see what can you tap into. Can you borrow money? Can you use investments or savings to start paying for your cost of living? Do you have debts that you have to manage? So, how are you going to do that if you have to make adjustments to your budget? Well, the financial planner can help you with that kind of stuff. So yeah, long answer for that little question is yes, a financial planner is a good idea.
Well, I think too that they're going to have a little bit more of their finger on the pulse of what resources maybe are available. And yep. So, like perhaps there is, government assistance or something like that can temporarily help somebody through this process as well. And I think those are the types of people, those are the experts that you can tap into to look at those resources. Because like I mentioned before, we obviously, we don't necessarily know these things are out there until we have to search for them.
Exactly.
And so I think reaching out to those professionals that have that information is obviously a great resource. And the benefit of doing that, I think, is you're going to reduce the stress that you're already facing, which yes. is really the most important part.
Yes, for sure. So, if you start in your life on a regular day-to-day basis, everybody has stress. And then you have regular costs of living, your just regular stuff, your budget, your heat, your hydro, your cable, your mortgage, your rent, your groceries. Those things don't go away when you get sick, right? And if you have debt on top of that, they don't just go away. They don't just get parked. They have to get taken care of. And the world continues. So you have to try to figure out a way to minimize the stress level that is going to cause. And working with a financial planner, as you mentioned, they do have a lot of resources at their disposition to try to point you in the right directions, and may have already done a lot of that research for you, so you don't have to spend hours on end doing the research yourself.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's actually a really good segue, because you just mentioned that life continues on, even when we're going through this period of time of maybe reduced income and health concerns. And budgeting becomes one of those sort of critical things, I think, during this time to really focus on. Do you have any advice on how to budget and manage our everyday expenses while we're sick?
Yes, I think that, every day in life, regardless of if we're sick or not sick, we should be budgeting. A lot of people don't. A lot of people try to and then fail. It's like, the New Year's resolution thing where I'm going to get on the treadmill and I do this. It's the same with the budget, unfortunately. So it's more important, I think, that when you're sick, especially if you have a reduced income, to really make a budget. So not only make a budget, but stick to your budget. So the idea is to write down every expense that you have coming, not just in this month, but months ahead, because not every month is a carbon copy of the previous month. So what every expense that you have in place, and then how can you action those expenses? So do you have enough money coming in with the change in income? If you have a change in income, can you supplement from somewhere? Do you get a government extra? Do you have investment that you can use? Do you have savings that you can use? Do you have, let's say you have a car loan or you have a big line of credit or big loan. Do you have insurance on that? If you do, it's possible that you can contact your medical professional, get a letter, send it to the banking institution, and they will make your payments for you while you're sick. That can help you. A lot of people have that and don't know they have it. And you're paying extra for that every single month. So it's taking an accounting of all of the things at your disposition and taking that budget. Then next part is determining, what can I cut out of that budget? Do I really need to buy all of the groceries that I was buying? If I'm not going to work, I'm not making my lunches. Can I cut there? What am I going to save on? Well, am I still going out to get coffee every day on my way to work? Am I buying my lunch? The gas that I'm not using driving to and from work, those are going to be some cost savings you're going to have right away. But other things that you might need to look, what can I trim? Can I reduce some of my phone expenses? My plan, can I bring it down? What about my streaming services? Do you have a bunch of them? Can you bring it down to a few? What things can you cut throughout, your budget on a monthly basis? But what are the things that are mandatory that need to get paid? You need to make sure that you have a plan in place for those.
I think too is, like you mentioned, is prioritizing those really important things, obviously, that have to be paid, your utilities and your rent, and those types of things are going to keep going. But looking at those other ways to cut the expenses a little bit, and I was thinking about car insurance. Even if you're in a position where you're recovering at home and you're not able to drive for a couple of months, perhaps contacting your insurance company and just reducing the insurance on your vehicle. It's going to be parking in the driveway for that period of time. And there's also ways of being frugal, I think. Do you have any sort of thoughts of, is it worthwhile starting to look at those couponing apps and things like that?
Yeah, you can absolutely do that. So back in my day, you were cutting them out, but now you have the apps. So you have the coupon apps. There's different places that do, and the name of the app is escaping me, but there's some apps that will say to you, like, they have like a $5 box or a $10 box or $15 box at the grocery store, and it's fresh food that day. And you pay that and you go and you buy like, a $20 pack of meat, which is like, $100 worth of meat. And you freeze it, and then you have that. They have the same thing with vegetables. They have the same thing with fruit. They have the same things, like just at different, you want a treat from Tim Hortons. Well, instead of spending, $5 at Tim Hortons on one or two things, you buy a $5 box and you have stuff for a week, So there's definitely different types of apps out there to help you with that. And then you've got the flyers, the online flyers to help you. And you might also have points. What if, you have your points from the grocery stores and from the gas stations that you've built up that you can use towards some of those expenses? Those are things that you can look at as well.
You've already given us a lot of great advice about handling our finances while we're going through a period of time of illness. And the next segment, we're going to talk about, what about those who might be carrying debt and what are their options moving from here? And so Natalie's going to have some more great advice from you when Money Matters returns.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Summer days, summer nights, lots of things to do, places to go, and people to see. If you're having a few drinks, be sure to plan ahead and get home safely. We don't want to pick you up. Drinking drivers risk injuries to themselves and others and take chances with their license, their jobs, and their future. Remember what's at stake and choose your ride, whether you're the driver, the passenger, or the party host. Thanks for supporting Sober Driving. I hope we never meet.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. What kind of show do you want to see on Rogers TV? What interests you? Log on to rogerstv.com, fill out a show proposal, and tell us about your segment idea. We want to know what you want to see. Rogers TV, only on Rogers.
Welcome back to Money Matters with Shannon Jackson. My guest today is Natalie Faubert, Senior Vice President and Licensed Insolvency Trustee with BDO Debt Solutions. And we've been discussing advice for dealing with your finances when faced with illness. And the advice that's going to follow is going to focus on your health and hopefully your recovery as well, because you're going through a very stressful time when you're dealing with an illness. So Natalie, before in the first segment, we were talking about advice on money management during this difficult time. So now I want to shift focus into how to manage debt if somebody is in a position where they're not only struggling maybe to meet their regular living expenses, but they've got a lot of debt as well that they're trying to handle. Do you have any advice, first of all, on what maybe sort of options they can be looking at when it comes to managing that debt?
Absolutely. So before the break, we talked about whether or not you had medical insurance or health insurance on any of your loans. That's something that would be the first thing I think to look into, is to see what loans you have that extra insurance coverage for, that they could perhaps take your payments and figure out what that plan looks like. Is it a short term? Is it a long term? Is it interest only? Is it the full payment? Really understand what can be done with that, and then initiate it, put it into place, get the help of your medical professional to whatever documents you need, submit that, and then put that in place. The next thing to do is, as with your budget, you're going to go through all of your debt and you're going to figure out what your monthly payments are. Do you have minimum monthly payments? Do you have credit cards that you have to pay? Do you have loans? Do you have lines of credits? Are the payments fixed? Are they every single month? Can you contact your institutions? Like, let's say if it's a bank loan or a line of credit, can you ask to skip a couple of payments? What can the bank do to work with you? And if you are having health issues, the bank often wants to work with you on a short-term basis, as long as you're in contact with them and you're making some sort of payment plan with them. And a lot of these loans have built-in ability to skip one or two payments without any impact to you. So that's something that you can look at. If you are struggling to make your payments and you think, what am I going to do? You have to really recognize that if you're not going to make your payments, it's going to have a negative impact on your credit rating, which will then bring you down the rabbit hole of bad credit rating. Your score is going to go down, and then it'll be more difficult for you to obtain credit down the road. So if you eventually need to consolidate everything to make things better, if your score has dropped because you've missed payments, you're going to be finding it more difficult to get approved, and sometimes end up with those higher interest loans with those financing companies. And now you're trying to consolidate your debt. Instead of 10%, you're going to potentially have 30 or 40% interest rate. So make sure that as you're putting a plan together, that you're at least making your minimum payments so that your score can stay status quo. If not go up, it won't go, at least won't go down. And then go back and look at what your options were. Do you have investments? Does it make sense to cash some investments? What are the tax implications of cashing those investments to pay your debts? Do you have a line of credit that's available to you? Can you consolidate? Those are things that you can look at on your own, or with the help of a financial planner, or with the help of a different professional like a licensed insolvency trustee, to see what your options are. The other thing that is, you look at is, do you have equity in your home? Could you refinance? Could you get a second mortgage, a home equity line of credit? Those are the first steps to look at.
I was thinking too, because we want to go back and revisit that budget, because maybe there's it's a short period of time where you're making this adjustment, and just by default, your expenses have reduced, such as you're not driving around so much. So now you have a little bit extra in the pocket because you're not spending so much on gas. And then that little bit extra that you found could maybe be paid towards maybe some of the debt that you're facing as well. So that sometimes a reduction in those expenses can help with then maybe handling that debt moving forward as you go through this temporary period. So that sort of just came to mind as you were talking there.
Yeah, now, and if sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish your thought.
Okay, I was going to use an example. It wasn't an illness per se, but I have a family member who through COVID worked from home and was able to save thousands and thousands of dollars just by not driving to work, not paying for parking, not buying lunches and buying coffees every day. And this person was able to pay down a huge loan that would have taken them, I think, 10 years to pay. And they paid it down in 4 years and they were so happy. So that's exactly right. If you have savings from other areas, you can take that and put it towards your debt if you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And now for those who maybe have done all of that, but they're still struggling maybe to make those minimum payments, should they be talking to somebody like yourself, like a licensed insolvency trustee?
Yes, you have absolutely nothing to lose by talking to a licensed insolvency trustee. There's no cost. So at licensed insolvency trustees across the country, BDO, we do initial consultations at no cost, often more than one initial consultation, and just really review your whole financial situation. When you have debt, you have stress. When you're sick, you have stress. When you combine the two, that's immense stress. So what we try to do is to help people who come to see us. So I'll say with my 30 plus years of experience and the time that I've worked with individuals over the years, I know I just aged myself, is when a person comes through my door, my job is to try to find a solution for them. And it might be with the services that we offer, but it might be with the services that are offered elsewhere. So a person comes through my door, and for me, there's no judgment. It's what can I do to help you? Let's have a look at your situation. So I always say, let's have a snapshot of your situation. I'm going to ask about your income, your expenses, your assets, and your debts, the overall picture of what's going on, what your long-term goals are, and what your long-term outlook is financially. And then let's put a plan together. Do you need to refinance your home? There's a lot of equity in your house. Should you sell your house? Could you consolidate your debt? Could you cash some investments? Those are all things that we've already talked about. But then the other options, we have a consumer proposal. A lot of people don't know about this amazing tool that the Government of Canada has for Canadians. And it is a repayment plan where you can offer a percentage of your debt with no interest, and there's no extra cost involved. The fees are calculated into it. So often when somebody is not able to do all the other options, that becomes a great solution for them. They don't have to file a bankruptcy. They have the ability to pay a portion of their debt. It's within the means of their budget, and then they can live comfortably and take that big sigh of relief and concentrate on getting better and healing. The other option, if the proposal just doesn't work, if you're super tight with money, there always is the bankruptcy as an alternate solution. And often, that bankruptcy word is scary. There's a stigma attached to it for sure, but it often is a great solution to help people, because to file a bankruptcy or a proposal, like one of the definitions in the legislation is to allow an honest person a fresh start. How cool is that? That, one, that we have this ability to do that in our country, and two, that you can come to see somebody and it's not going to cost you anything and you're going to get all that advice.
There does seem to be this stigma, just like you mentioned, about wanting to talk about the money that we owe to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just making that initial phone call to talk to a professional, I think it's one of the hardest things that people do. What sort of experience have you had when somebody comes in to meet you for that first time? Do you see a change in them when they leave your office?
Absolutely. And you talked about that stigma. I think I was reading at one point that like more than half of Canadians don't know how to talk or are embarrassed to talk about their debt. It's a pretty high number. People don't like to talk about their finances. They don't like to talk about their marital situation. They also don't like to talk about the debts that they have and the difficulties that they're having. That seems to be one of the bigger ones. And I'll say that making that phone call or that initial connection to make that appointment is often daunting and scary. Some people tell me that they've booked 3 times before they came in to see us. But when you're going through the process, often you have to come back to see us more than once. So you're going to come in for your initial consultation. If you decide you're going to file, you're going to come in to sign. And then another day, you're going to come in and you're going to do a budget session with us. Over this period of time, over the years, I have seen such a change in people's demeanors. I see a change in their skin color. I see a change in the way that they carry themselves. Their shoulders are back. They seem taller. They're smiling. They look better, if that makes any sense. Like it's crazy to me how everything is intermingled, body, mind, and soul. And when you have a plan in place whereby all of that stress just leaves, then there's a huge difference. And then you can use all that extra strength to work on your health if you're struggling with your health.
I think it's so important to, like you mentioned, having all of this stress behind us, it does affect every single aspect of our being, whether it's physical or mental. And being able to see that change in someone as even after that first meeting with them, a lot of people will say to me, I'm going to be able to sleep tonight. Mm-hmm. And they haven't slept for months. And yep. that initial reaction, I think is really so important.
It's true.
And I think too, with sort of the reasons that people come in to see us, I say us as I myself am a licensed insolvency trustee like you. When people come in to see us, the reasons behind it often vary. But I think the health reasons, I feel like, are one of the most common reasons people come in to see us. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I would say health and marital status or marital difficulties, I think, are the two bigger ones. A lot of people will think that, people are mismanaging or just going out there and having lots of fun, but that's just not the case. In my span of my career, there has been a very, very, very small amount of people who have come in who were irresponsible or who did it on purpose. Like the majority of the time, they're unforeseen events that happen in your life. One of them, major ones, being health issues. Even if it's just a couple of months, you're off work for a couple of months. And if you are paycheck to paycheck, which the majority of Canadians are, the minute that paycheck goes down, those expenses don't go down. That's where the snowball effect happens. And then you find yourself 6 months later trying to catch up and you just can't. So I agree with you for sure.
So Natalie, when you're speaking with people who are going through so many stresses in their life, not only health, but their finances, is it difficult, or how do you find speaking with clients on a regular basis? Is it sort of doom and gloom all the time?
It's funny you ask that, Shannon, because I get that a lot. As soon as people find out what I do, that's what they think. Or they think, you're the repossessor, and I'll say, no, like, I'm the helper. I am helping people. So for myself, at the end of the day, I go home and I feel really good about having helped so many different people over so many years. And that's the feeling that I get from people as well, who'll say to me, like, thank you for taking the time to explain this to me. Thank you for taking the extra steps to go over this with me. Even if I'm not helping them through BDO or through a consumer proposal or a bankruptcy, even if I've referred them to a mortgage broker to go and refinance their home or something like that, I will get the thank you so much for taking the time to help me to reduce my stress level, which that's a good thing. There's not a lot of doom and gloom.
Yeah, I agree with that. Do you have any final thoughts for our viewers as we wrap up?
Yeah, I guess I can say that if you are struggling with health issues and that you find yourself in a situation like we've discussed today, know that there are resources out there. There's people that you can talk to. You can start with your family. You can start with your friends. You can speak to a financial planner. You can speak with an estate lawyer if you need to. You can speak with a licensed insolvency trustee. If you need to reach out to us, you absolutely can. There's no cost to the consultation. We have a lot of advisors who have a great amount of experience and are just happy to help because that's what their job is.
Well, Natalie, thank you so much for being here and sharing your advice. And I also want to thank you, our viewers, for watching. Until next time, I'm Shannon Jackson.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Think it's okay to drive high? Think again. Drug-impaired driving is as illegal as drunk driving, and an